It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tom Mikkelsen, President and Scientific Director, and Christa Studzinski, Manager of Partnerships, both from the Ontario Brain Institute. As many of you are aware, the Ontario Brain Institute has been an integral partner to Holland BloorviewA. From the OBI's foundational days with Dr. Don Stuss and Joe Rotman. I'm grateful that Dr. Mikkelsen and Christa and the entire OBI leadership team have continued to nourish our collaboration through countless means of support and sage advice. On behalf of the Researchers Institute, I sincerely express my gratitude. Please join me now in welcoming our colleagues from OBI who will deliver our sponsor talk.
Great. Good morning. Tom Mikkelsen here. Thank you so much, Tom. We're so proud to partner with the Holland BloorviewA research community and the folks living with neurologic disorders and their families. The goal of the OBI is to be a everywhere and nowhere. We're a pan-provincial network funded by government, and our job is to accelerate progress towards folks living with neurologic disease in the community. So partnerships are so critical, both with the scientists and the clinicians that are at the institutions, but also patients and their advocates who inform and are the recipients of a lot of the research that we do. Finally, one of the other group of partners is the commercialization world, where new innovators are bringing new technologies forward for therapeutic use. What we want to do, however, is make sure that that's evidence-based, that we're adding real value, both as judged by their financial success, their commercial success, but also by the customer, that the value perceived by the end user is where the rubber hits the road. Next slide, please. So we have a real interest in advancing brain health in the broadest sense, not just disease-related care, but brain health in the largest context. And of course, folks are living in the community with these disorders, and it's a matter of how we help them manage to live their best lives in the context of the living community. So this is not a boutique exercise that only happens in the doctor's office. Our job is to deploy innovation to help folks live their better lives for better brain health, both the normal population, but also the folks that are living with some sort of neurologic disorder and their families, as you've heard very well articulated this morning. Next slide, please. We do have a pan lifespan approach, so we have programming specifically associated with early life years, but also the latter life years as well. We think that these values of collaborative research, bringing together all the partners in the innovation community, together with this idea of commercialization as a means to get innovation into the sector, are very critical. But finally, we want to make sure that these innovations fit a niche or fit a role within the concept of the care path for folks living with neurologic diseases. So that's a broad mandate and mission, but I think we have some very excellent proof points that Christa is going to enlarge upon next. So until she logs in, I can just fill the gap. So we have a range of commercialization activities where we bring entrepreneurs right out of the idea state, the scientist at their bench or the clinician in the clinic, bringing together ideas, prototyping, and support activities to bring their innovations into fruition. So there are a range of programs that we have, and several excellent candidates out of Holland BloorviewA having been proof points to that end. A lot of the work that we also do is very data-driven. So we are developing and innovating and collecting data from folks, and you've heard some participants already today, of allowing us to partner with the folks living in the community with neurologic disorders, their data that goes along with them to show the clinical benefit of what we do. We also do a lot of training with regards to the process of entrepreneurship. How does a scientist become a leader of a small company? How do the process of science work? And so we have a lot of internships and folks dealing with the data in the care delivery community that generates value to these commercial ends. And finally, our role is to work with regulators and with the Ministry of Health to show how our innovations adopted and deployed out into the sector. So one of the terrific success stories right out of Holland BloorviewA itself is the Awake Labs story, which really just lives this concept from laboratory to life. So we develop innovations, and a lot of these are apps and technology and wearable sensors and things like this. But the idea is that this is to the service of a good end for clinical value. The specific example here in Awake Labs has to do with a monitor for nonverbal children that are able to identify and flag emotional issues that allow us to de-escalate and keep them, in the classroom and in the home with little difficulty. Next slide, please. There are in our portfolio over the last 10 years, 80 new companies, 20 patient groups that have informed the validation of some of these technologies, important partnerships with pharma, and complete engagement with the patient advocacy community to making sure that what we were developing is of value to the end user, the customer. Next slide, please. There are a number of important ways that the community is actually engaged in generating the data. So this is an example that's undergoing evaluation right now today in Ottawa in the context of patients living with epilepsy. The idea is that epilepsy monitoring is rather subjective if you're simply relying on a calendar. And this is a semi-automated way of providing objective information about seizure control in the community with the end user in mind. And the idea is gathering the data to demonstrate its value in helping to tweak and improve epilepsy control. Next slide, please. There are, as I said, 80 some companies that do this, and this ranges everywhere from actually robotic information that's helping with the rehabilitation of children with mobility disorders, specifically through Holland BloorviewA. There are sensors that are actually involved in therapeutics of tremor and things like that in the adult population, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a robust pipeline, and again, bringing a high bar of data and evidence-based value to the promotion of these entrepreneurs to high value. So this is not merely a money-making exercise. The idea is to bring value to an unmet need in the context of helping folks live with neurologic disorders. So that was basically the bottom line. Is we're happy to engage offline, but we have a really huge deep bench in skill, both with the entrepreneurs from Holland BloorviewA also to the process of developing entrepreneurship and supporting companies in the sector. So we're very, very happy to engage in this. And again, very, very pleased to partner with Holland BloorviewA today and the rest of the research with impact. So thanks. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Dr. Mikkelsen. And my apologies, Christa, for the technical delay in getting you connected. My apologies. We're really so fortunate in Ontario to have an institute devoted to brain science, especially with a strong neurodevelopmental focus. So thank you, OBI, for the continuing leadership in fostering science, the cognate training, commercialization, patient engagement, and really growing the neuroscience ecosystem in our province. So very, very grateful for your partnership.